My name is Richard Meredith. I'm the Senior Program Manager for the Helping Rural Communities Prepare for Drought initiative. As many of you will know, this is a future drought fund program funded by the Australian government through the Future Drought Fund. And it is a $30 million program covering 35 drought vulnerable regions across Australia. Thank you, Shannon. We'll move to the next slide. An acknowledgement that in the spirit of reconciliation, we acknowledge the traditional custodians of the country throughout Australia and their connections to land, sea, and community. We pay our respects to their elders, past and present, and extend that respect to all Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islanders people. Just to introduce, some of you will be aware of the Foundation for Rural and Regional Renewal, FRRR. Some of you may not be aware. FRRR is the only nationally focused foundation specifically working on ensuring social and economic strength in remote, rural and regional areas of Australia. And we do align government, philanthropic and community purposes in our investments. FRRR has a national resilience agenda designed to support and assist rural, regional and remote communities to build their capacity and capability to be resilient and healthy communities. And we do this across three key portfolios, which do overlap sometimes from time to time in the kinds of projects and grants that we're able to make available. And the first of these is the focus on people and investing in the power of people to drive community building and well-being, and as a consequence of that, to build prosperity across those communities. The locational context is very central to achieving equitable access, and many of you joining us here today will have experience of the unlevel playing field that you sometimes confront in relation to equitable access to services and other forms of community support. And it is often a case where the community is thrown back on its own resources, and part of our job is to endeavour to support you in building those resources and strengthening your communities. The disaster resilience and climate solutions part of this program is actually the focus of the Helping Regional Communities Prepare for Drought. And as many of you will be very, very well aware, drought is an inevitable and frequent or regular part of living in Australia, and particularly in some of our remote regions. Climate change and natural disasters are a threat to sustainability and viability in these communities. And this program that we're going to talk about today is one of two major programs of granting that FRRR is leading across these 35 drought vulnerable communities. The Small Networks Grant Program is designed to assist not-for-profit organisations, community organisations, to build from the grassroots, to build their own projects and to strengthen and broaden the community benefit through those projects. So on to the small network grants and the detail of which we will give you plenty of information on our website and provide this more information as we go along. As you can see from the two diagrams, this is round one of the Small Networks Grants program. The program will be run in 2 rounds, and the second one will open again. It will open in February. But for now, the important part of this presentation today is to talk about the round that has just opened and will close on the 14th of November. So it is divided into 2 streams. And this is very important for those of you who may be in one or either of these 2 streams, because they are based on location. So stream 1, the grants are up to $20,000. And those grants are available now, and the applications, as I say, are on our website, as is more information. These are for community groups in prioritised local government areas. I need to just make it really clear at this moment to you, these are not local government grants. It's just that the areas in which they're available are local government areas. But the community, any community, registered community group or organisation, not-for-profit organisation, is eligible to apply, provided they are in one of those local government areas. These are all agriculture dependent communities in rural, regional and remote Australia. Now, stream 2 is a special stream, and you may be in this region, but you may not be, because it is restricted to just 4 regions, local government regions within Australia. And the reason being, for those of you who are not aware, is that prior to this stream of grants being, the small network grants being offered, we also had a number of community impact grants which were of a larger type, a larger amount. And some of the regions, these 4 regions here, were not able to put together a community impact grant, but they are within the 35 drought vulnerable regions. Hence, it has been decided that Far Northwest New South Wales, Northern Territory arid lands, Northern Territory tablelands, and Western Australia Great Southern local government areas will be eligible for up to $50,000 grants. Please bear in mind that the up to or maximum amounts are just that, and that there is no minimum amount. So if you're looking to put in an application at less than that amount, that is quite okay, and assuming all other things are correct, it will be eligible. So I want to now spend a little bit of time talking through with you some of the important aspects of putting a grant application together, because it is critical for you to consider just how much planning needs to go into this. I don't want to make it too onerous, but I think just this is a really helpful tip, or these are really helpful tips for you. We will also send this out to you, and of course this information is available on the FRRR website, frrr.org.au. So it is absolutely critical to plan your project idea before you start to write the grant. The reason being that for your sake, you don't want to be writing it twice. And I think there's an old saying, plan twice, do it once, it really applies strongly in this case. So make sure you plan with your group, committee, or a group, or whatever group you're with, and make sure it is that know what you're wanting to do. So if I can put it simply, make sure you explain to yourself and understand what the project activity is. And of course, it is critical in this process to understand that these are drought preparedness grants. Now, drought preparedness can be done in many ways, and our focus is on the social impact. So it's on the human element. And thus, there are many ways that you may be able to approach this grant making. And I'll just list a few of them just to give you a little bit of an example. So you may be looking at networks, and this could be an initiative to strengthen the capacity or the capability and coordination of professional, social, or community networks. So networks within a community that you feel strengthening these will actually help you in future drought preparedness. So think about that as a potential, is that a potential way for you to start looking at grants? We're also very open to community events because they can provide a really good focus, often bringing people together who don't normally meet in an organization, an existing organization, but it brings them together around an event that they can join in and people meet one another. And the focus within those could very well be some social activity within which you have some serious activity around things like drought preparedness. So you might want to get in a speaker, you might want to run a conference, a forum. It doesn't have to be enormous, but it's something that you can think about. How can I tailor my grant so that it is focused on drought preparedness, but still has other elements to it? Because the other elements, the social elements, are actually quite critical to bringing people together. You might want to consider training. So if you're improving the skills and capabilities of people within these grants, then that's another good way of looking at it. And small community infrastructure. So we're not looking at large buildings here, but there may be things that you want to set up within your community that will bring people together, that may be able to help in drought preparedness. So they may be related to an existing organization that has, has some equipment needs, or they may be related to a much more social activity, even simple things like a barbecue or something like that, that you're going to use. Critical to this is that they are used directly in the delivery of your project. So planning your project is really important, and making sure others in your organization and the community are on board. It's critical when you come to doing the application that you can show evidence that you've brought others into the project. And that will give you a stronger application, because this is really about broadening drought preparedness across communities. So I think I've covered most of that there. Letters of support, sorry, I should have mentioned that. So if you can get letters of support to show the community other organisations are engaged in your project, that would be an excellent idea as well. So once you've got through all of that, and it's not a small task, but it's something that you can do and have a bit of fun doing, I think, then it's time to start writing your application. It's absolutely critical that you read the guidelines, because no grant is available for just anything. They are always set up around guidelines, and the guidelines give you guide your eligibility and your program or your project. So follow all the application instructions and the word limits, because that actually does make it very difficult for the assessors if you start running over word limits, trying to run over word limits. And I think, I wouldn't be absolutely sure, but I think in some cases the grant application form won't allow you to go over word limits anyway. So keep your writing succinct and clear, and allow yourself plenty of time. So you've got till November the 14th. So it's a good month in which to get this done. I understand fully that a lot of you are volunteers, so this is critical to give yourself time. It's a little bit of extra homework, but will be well worth doing to achieve a grant that you can use for the benefit of your community. Financials and quotes and letters of support, as we mentioned before, but quotes on things. If there is something that's going to cost you money and you're applying for it, it's to build or to run, as in guest speakers and so on, then make sure you have clear quotes that you can attach to your application. This will just make it quicker to get all of this in place in one hit, so that we're not running backwards and forwards trying to find little bits and pieces. So follow these tips and then put those bits together with your application, and that will help the process quickly, get through the process quickly. And of course, make sure the sums add up, so that you've checked them and that they do make sense. Now, telling a compelling story about why it's important to your community is absolutely critical. So we're connecting here community benefit, the people who are involved, with the future drought preparedness. So thinking about that, you may look to go back and find stories from the past that you're going to use to inform your project going forward. But whatever it is, it's got to be a good story. Make it a good story. Tell us why, this is important to your community, and why the community will absolutely benefit from what you're proposing. So with all of that together, you've got a really good background, or a good core kernel for your application. We, as the assessors, can only assess what we have in our hands. So we're not mind readers. So please make sure that you have all the material in your application, and avoid as much as possible chasing up, or the potential of not getting through because the application appears to be weak. Now, at the end of this presentation, we will provide you with access to, and we will send you this presentation. I'll repeat that. We will send you this presentation to make sure that you've got all the information, as well as, of course, going to the website, frrr.org.au, and the information is there. But our staff, community engagement coordinators, are available to help you. So, a brief summary of the writing writing steps, and I think these are really, really important to have in mind. So the first thing is, try to use clear, simple language. What do I mean by that? Well, I think the important thing is to say what you mean in a simple sentence. It is better to write 3 sentences than to write one really long, convoluted sentence. If every sentence has a single idea, we'll be happy with that, as long as that idea builds towards the story that you're trying to tell and the application that you're trying to put to us. Avoid as much as possible jargon and technical language. It shouldn't be necessary, but try to avoid it anyway, so that we are simple people, and we're going to really benefit from having a much clearer idea of what you have to say. If there are words that are acronyms, HRCPD being one of the great acronyms of the moment, FRRR, but you will have acronyms in your community, in your organisation, but we won't know what they are. So at the beginning of this presentation, I spelled out FRRR and HRCPD. Now you're very familiar with them, and you'll be able to go around and talk about them without having to spell them right out. But in your application, please make sure that any acronyms you use are spelled out, unless they're universally known. But most acronyms that are from the local community will be your special intelligence. So please spell them out for us. So here's a good one. Just assume that the reader knows nothing about your organisation, your project, or your community. It's a really good starting point. Don't assume that we know who you are, what you're doing, and what your community is like. Use evidence, as we've discussed before, and there's letters of support, budgets, quotes, and so on. Facts are much more important than opinions. You may have a very strong opinion, but factually, does it stand up? So provide us with facts and be very specific. So don't just talk in general kind of flim-flam. Talk really specifically and clearly, which goes along with speaking in a simple language and writing very simple sentences, and make it clear how you are going to use the requested funds and who will benefit from it. I won't spend long on this particular slide. It's just to let you know that there are a lot of general grant seeker resources at frrr.org.au. And you can see down the bottom of the screen there that there are quite a number of links to various forms of information. Not all of it is FRRR specific, but you may find there's something there such as project planning perhaps, or money matters, that you might find a little read through something like that might actually help you, particularly if you're new to writing applications. And finally, this is just the overview map of the 35 regions in community impact. Now, as I said earlier, be very clear that if you need to, because there's a large number, nearly 200 LGAs involved in this small network grant program, I'm not going to run through them all, and I haven't learnt them all off by heart. So please go to the more information for small network grants, and there are quite a number of FAQs there for you to go through, one of which has a list of all the local government areas. Now, I'm going to assume, always dangerous, of course, but I'm going to assume that most of you have received the invitation to this event because you are in one of those local government areas, but please just check. I've also noted on the slide the two people, Fiona and Alicia, who are our community engagement coordinators. So when you're calling in, please see that Fiona is covering New South Wales, Queensland and Victoria, and Alicia covers NT, South Australia, Tasmania and Western Australia. So make sure when you call in, you're clear about who you want to speak to, or if you email to the Future Drought Fund, or futuredroughtfund@frrr.org.au, that you specify clearly where you're from and who you would like to speak to, and then that will be arranged for you. Just a note, as I said at the beginning, this program is an Australian government program as part of the Future Drought Fund preparation. And we, as FRRR, are the delivery organisation for these grants, these small network grants. I'm going to now open up for questions. Do we have any questions? And I'll just check. I think that Fiona's covered the chat while I've been talking. But do any people have any further questions they would like to ask? Please unmute yourself, introduce yourself, and speak up. Do we have any questions about the grants themselves, about any aspects of them that you've Sorry, Juliet, I'm just going to check what that said. If FRRR is for only part of the grant amount, does the balance have to be confirmed prior to application. On the grant form, there is a space where you can provide either in-kind or other budget information, other sources of funding that you have. So if it's a project that's, let's say, at $50,000 and you already have $30,000 secured by the in-kind or from other sources, then you have to include that in the total overall budget, and then how much you're asking for from FRRR.
Richard, if I may.
Yes, please.
Just a little bit of extra for you, Juliet. Thank you for your question. Like Richard said, yes, you can. Need to be mindful that the funding period for grants within this program is June 2025. So as long as your project can be delivered, well, that's the time. That's basically the time that the money needs to be spent by. If you do have other funding partners, the application, I believe, will ask you to confirm whether they are actually confirmed or not. But if you're looking at rolling out your project and you haven't got a funding partner, then how is that project going to be staged so that you can make sure that that money that's allocated to the project can be spent on the activity that you've identified and applied for in the time that it needs to be spent by? Hoping that makes sense. Does that make sense?
Thank you, Fee. That was really good. I appreciate you explaining that, because that time frame is really important too, that you don't overextend yourself and find you're not able to finalise and report on your spending by June 2025. Belinda's question is, if you have received funding for other projects under CIP, which is the Community Impact Grant funding, are you still eligible to apply for other projects in the small network grants? And the answer to that is no. So I hope that clarifies that for you, Belinda.
Sorry, Richard, can I just clarify?
Yes, please.
Belinda, from an eligibility question, yes, you are eligible, but within that particular stream of funding, there are areas that are prioritised, and they are communities within the Community Impact Program regions that weren't supported in any of the projects that were identified. So yes, you can throw your hat in the ring, but just be aware that if there are other regions that haven't received funding under Community Impact, they are the priority. So I hope that makes a bit more sense.
Thanks for clarifying that, Fee. Rachel May, what criteria was used to determine the prioritised LGA? It seems in South Australia there are some areas that I would assume would be greater priority for drought resilience than others, but not listed, e.g. Riverland and Murray. So the answer, and Fee might want to come in on this as well, but the answer largely is that these LGAs are those that are outside the current community impact grants, and there is inevitably some overlap, but those two regions you're speaking of, I think I'm right in saying this, Riverland and Murray, are both regions that have received community impact grant funding.
Yep, that's correct, Rachel. Both Riverland, Murraylands and the Mallee regions have been successfully coordinated and collaborated in developing a plan. So they are actually in play at the moment. So in the Mallee regions, Mallee sustainable farming, and I can't remember Murrayland, Riverland, Alicia, that's your neck of the woods, but both of those communities are actually supported in a community impact program. So, but similarly to Rachel's question, to the earlier question, communities within those LGAs are still eligible to apply in stream 1.
Thank you, Fee. Do we have any other questions?
Richard, I just had one question, if I could. Thanks. It's just Jeff Lyle from Rural Financial Counselling Service. How are you? That was really informative, and thank you. I just took a picture, of course, of the area in New South Wales that would apply to us. And I'm just thinking, my employer is based in Wagga, but a lot of those areas that are in the map there, of course, are areas that we've got staff working in and that we cover. So I assume that even though our base is Wagga, which I'm thinking would be in one of the LGAs possibly, I don't know, but I'm looking at the map and I know that parts of those LGAs would definitely be areas that we would cover. So I'm assuming there'd be no reason why we couldn't apply for any of those areas.
That's right. And the organisation that applies would be an organisation within those communities, which you may be supporting or servicing. So that's absolutely, eligible.
Right.
Work on that basis.
Yeah, no, thanks. I assume so, but I thought I'd better ask. Because I'm fairly new in doing this kind of work. Yep.
Likewise, I am too.
Yeah, well, you've presented it very well. Thank you.
That's very kind of you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Okay, as I said at the beginning, we will make sure that there is plenty of information coming out to you over the next few weeks to ensure that you're on top of it. But please use that information. We will send you the presentation, all those of you who've joined us, and so that you have the contact details. And of course, frrr.org.au is your source of information for all of these, for the small network grants. I got a little bit distracted by something I saw there. I thought, okay, thanks for that, Western Landcare New South Wales. Thank you very much.
Richard, can I just touch quickly too, just to reiterate for everyone the difference between Stream 1 and Stream 2 of funding. So Stream 1 funding is grants up to $20,000 available for agriculturally dependent communities in regional Australia. There are areas within that program that are prioritised. So which all the information is available will be in the link to the FRRR website with that list will be sent to everybody. And it's also available in the program guidelines. And Stream 2 is for grants up to $50,000 for Far West New South Wales, blimey Charlie, Arid Lands, Northern Territory, Tablelands, Northern Territory, and Great Southern WA. So those regions again are also available for you in the guidelines. So jump on there and have a look, and please reach out to Alicia and I if you have any questions. We're more than happy to help.
Thank you for repeating that, Fee. That's really helpful, I think, for everyone. As I say, it is on the presentation that you'll receive, but and also it'll be on the website. But it's good to just repeat that as we come to a close. I think we are probably done. If there's no further questions, I thank you all. Thanks very much for joining us today. It's been great to talk to you, to hear your questions. And as I say, we will be continuing to promote this program over the next few weeks so that hopefully we can get a lot of applications coming in for round 1 of the small networks grants. But for now, thank you and goodbye.